Welcome to Leave No Doubt. Today I'm joined by Alex Parsons, who's a movement coach to some of the most elite athletes in the country and in the Premier League. So don't want to embarrass you, mate, by letting people know which kind of players that you work with straight away. But just to name a few, Jordan Henderson, Ashley Young, Danny Ings, James Maddison, Callum Chambers, John McGinn, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. The list is certainly endless. To get us started, mate, I think it might be a good idea if, in your own words, you let people know exactly what it is that you do and your journey as to how you've got to where you are today.
Oh, the journey is a long one. So I'm a personal trainer, and God, how did I get here? So I was in football until I was about 20. I was at AFC Bournemouth from 14. Done my youth team there. Done first year pro. Didn't get my contract renewed. Spent probably a few months trying to get a club, going on trials at different clubs. Couldn't get anything. And then I went to Nike Academy, which was for players who had been released from professional clubs. You join the Nike Academy, which you trial for, and you go and play loads of different clubs on the hope that you get picked up by one of them. Nothing came of that. I didn't even get one trial, but it was an amazing experience when I look back now. Really good fun, really good lads. Went from there, dropped out, went into non-league, done footy coaching, just joined a local club to me, White Hawk, which was my first non-league club, and that was an eye-opener. But again, it was when I look back now, and at the time, when I look back now, an unbelievable experience. At the time, you think, this is tough, this. And then after that, just done some footy coaching alongside playing part-time on the hope that I'm going to pick somewhere up again. Just went out footy coaching. Was kind of enjoying it, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. Left White Hawk, then joined Bognor, which was great. Really good club. Wanted to play football in the right way. Still in part-time at this moment. And do you know what? It was then when I was like, right, I need to sort myself out here. I was comfortable at Bognor, enjoyed it. The lads were good. I probably had that realization that this is going to be like me now. So from that, I actually went into plumbing, got my plumbing apprenticeship, done my gas work. Again, I was working for Old Man. It was great. It was, at the time it was tough, but again, looking back now, it was a great experience because I was, you go someplace, you're on some sites that's freezing cold. It was like tough work, but again, it was good. Didn't do it for too long, maybe 18 months or 2 years. And then I was like, right, now, do you know what? I want to be a PT. So I had my level 2 anyway. And then I literally dropped everything, went and got my qualification level 3. And then from there, that's when I started building that business up. So to start off with, I was plumbing and PTing. So I'll be PTing in the morning, and then going off plumbing, then PTing in like the evening. So that took me up till I was probably 24 then, 29 now. So I was about 24 at that time, and then built up my business so I could go into PTing full time. And then that's when it kind of I've ended up here as such. It's been an interesting journey, a good one.
Incredible journey, mate. Really, isn't it? I think there's so much value in us having a conversation today because yes, you work with elite guys, and sometimes the perception of seeing on Instagram that you're now training with, Danny Ings in an off season, that how's that personal trainer got to work with him? Like, he's lucky or he's lucky, but just through going through your experiences there, like none of what you've had to do is luck. Like actually you've had to overcome an awful lot, and there's actually a lot of value today in talking to you about your career and as a footballer and how that obviously started and the emotions that you had to go through when you were released from clubs and obviously trying to then get back in on trial and places like that. I think this is going to be really interesting. So just to give people a little bit, obviously, a perspective, a bit more about your Bournemouth career. You're a couple of years younger than me, obviously, and you were involved in the first team for not just that year as a pro, but the year before that as a second-year youth team player as well. When you look back on that time, for other people who may be going through those, similar circumstances where they're in the youth team, they're a first-year pro and they're finding it difficult to break into a first team. What did you go through during that time? How tough was that?
Really tough at the time. You don't know it at the time, but that is making you who you are. Do you know what I mean? In the future and now. I think those tough times helped me not get to where I'm at now, because I'm nowhere near like where I want to be, but I think they kind of build your personality, give you good characteristics, but you just don't think about it at the time. Because at that time, you're 17, 18, trying to make it professional. In what was a good change room, to be fair. It was a great change room. And we were very fortunate. But it was tough every day. You're trying to impress someone every day. You don't really know what or who, but you are trying to impress someone to try and get an opportunity, for at that club for that team. And you're trying to leave no stone unturned. But yeah, that was tough, especially at that time, because they were League One. There wasn't loads of money. And like any, I think if you're a bigger club, I don't know, actually, you'll probably know more than me. I think if you're a bigger club, they've got more money to gamble on you to go and do well. Or, they might give you a 2-year contract because they got the money to be able to pay you. But at Bournemouth, it was literally, because they didn't have any money, it was like cutthroat. It was, if you're good enough, you play. If we don't think you're good enough, then I don't think we're not going to give you an opportunity. That's how I see it. But yeah, at the time, it is building you. It's so tough. And when you look back now, to deal with those feelings you had at 17, 18, 19 were really hard. And it's not until you look back on those times where you realize, on those feelings that you were having, it was pressure. It was, I don't like using it all the time, but you were anxious. You had anxiety as such. It was, you felt lonely because although you had your teammates, and I'd made some great friends there who I'm still friends with now, you had your mates, you're all still trying to fight for that one contract as such. You are fighting for yourself to make a living. And at that time at Bournemouth, it was to make it living. Because the money they had wasn't like extortionate. The contracts were small. I'm sure it's a bit different there now. But yeah, it was a really good experience. Tough, but really good.
And you were heavily involved in that team though as well. Like in not just obviously, I know you made one appearance as a substitute that year that you were a pro, but in terms of like training days, banter, changing room, going out at night, like you were involved heavily in it, obviously in that season.
Yeah.
How challenging, people are going to wonder when you do get released, because of course we're all working and everybody's been in a similar circumstance where youth team, you're working for a professional contract, first professional contract, you're then working to establish yourself in a first team and to get a longer contract. How challenging was it for you when obviously after that year ended up with you having to go on elsewhere to do something, or not to do something else, but to another club?
Yeah, it was, when you get that first year pro, you think you're there, but you're not. And that doesn't mean that I took my foot off the gas or anything like that, but you think you're like, hello, this is going to be my life, this is going to be my career, and you've worked so hard for that moment. But yeah, then there is that reality kicks that when you do get released. League One at the time, that was painful, really, really tough, because I live in Worthing, so and people knew you played football. You left, everyone at school knew you played football, and people in the area knew you went on to, you're professional. To then drop out of that, and then people to come up to you and ask you, how's footy going, or what happened at Bournemouth, or when you drop into part-time, you tell someone who you play for, and they're like, so you haven't made it, and stuff like that. I think at that time, you don't really think too much of it. But yeah, when you get comments like that, and then you start realizing that actually I'm not. After wanting to be a professional, that was really tough to take, really tough, and there was days where you didn't know what you wanted to do. There was days where you didn't want to see anyone, you didn't want to socialize with anyone after those days of being released because you didn't want to see it. You're a bit embarrassed of it as such. But again, like I said earlier, you don't know at the time, but those feelings do build you when you look back.
I think it's quite refreshing that you're brave enough to talk about that, because a lot of other people would just say, "Oh, I wasn't really that fussed, it didn't work out, and I just did this or did that," and it almost becomes, well, it is. It's not almost. It becomes your identity when you're young, especially at school. You're the guy that plays football. You're the guy that's going to be a football player, and everybody gravitates towards you because of that. I've actually heard, like, Declan Rice has done interviews with Gary Neville on the overlap, which is obviously great, and he speaks about that his identity was a football player, and when I think he was released by Chelsea and ended up with West Ham, but speaking to his friends about, like, I've been released, was super tough because his identity was that he was the football player.
Yeah.
So when you lose that,
you
don't really know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can imagine that was super tough.
Yeah, definitely. You're spot on, to be fair. That is all, that is then you've got to create something else for yourself. And you've got to change not the way you are, but you've just got to completely change path on where you thought you were going at such a young age is hard. But then that's when, your few close mates, you start realizing who your mates are a little bit at that time as well. Who were there for you, at those times and didn't care and did help you, to keep going and keep cracking on. To completely change path at that moment in time at such a young age, I think it is tough.
Is there anything that you think, if you had that time again, that you would do differently?
Do you know what? That it's easier said than done now. Listen, we could always say that, I wish I spent half an hour more in the training ground or half an hour more in the gym.
But no, I don't think you left any stone unturned. But
one thing I wish I'd done was just enjoy it more. I wish at the time I just took a step back, realised what was going on, and just enjoy the moment of making your debut, and seeing your family there in the stand, or just being able to go training every single day, because suddenly it's completely gone. And I think that works for everyone. I think people who are older than me, who are stepping out, who are retiring and such, they say it goes so quick. Obviously, mine went quicker, but I just wish that sometimes I stepped back and enjoyed the moment, be around it, and realise kind of what you've done as such.
It's really difficult, I think. I often talk to people. It's very common that guys that I've spoken to said, "I wish I enjoyed it more."
Yeah,
but I think it's so difficult to do that. I know that you'd love to reflect on that day that you made your debut with your family there and how fun that must have been. But at the time, you're probably thinking, I want to do this again. Or did we get a result on the day? How did I play? Did I impress anyone? What are the fans thinking of me? All that sort of stuff goes through your mind. So it's very difficult to say, I'm going to step back and enjoy it, because the reason why you weren't enjoying it was arguably the reason why you were there in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think enjoying it is really difficult to break that down into what that actually looks like.
100%. And I think no, even now with what I do and stuff, I always say to myself before I go on a trip away or where I'm lucky enough to travel a little bit, I'm always like, right, take some moments within this trip to realize what you're doing and enjoy it. But then you get caught up, in work and, every day, or the days are quite long, and you do forget to take that time to enjoy it, because you want to do well, because you want to perform well as such as a trainer. You want to give your most to every client that you're training. Again, there's those pressures of performing, and they're different pressures of performing now, because obviously you're doing it in front of less people, or but you still want to perform well for yourself. You still want to be the best you can be. So there are still those pressures that I think back then have helped, like I say earlier, have helped that journey now. But I think now more than ever, especially with everything that's going on, on social media in the world, etc., it's so important to take that time to step back and realize whether it's whether it's every Sunday evening, every Monday morning when you're driving to work, or and you're enjoying what you're doing, it's important. Just take 2 minutes out to think, oh no, do you know what, this is great, this is where I kind of want to be as such.
I'm really keen to obviously get into your expertise, mate, and get as much information as possible for everybody watching and listening on how they can ultimately improve their football. But I think the experiences that you've gone through are almost too valuable to pass up on getting your opinion on, really. So I'm interested to know, for the benefit of everybody else, was there ever you've spoken about the Nike Academy and how you were playing against different clubs that may or may not have given you an opportunity to go there. You end up going to Whitehawk, which is a bit of an eye-opener, and Bognor. In the moment or moments, period of time that you had decided maybe this dream of playing full-time football isn't going to happen, was there ever a specific moment, thought, day that happened where you can remember changing your mindset, and how tough was that?
I'm not sure there was a particular day where I thought, do you know what, this isn't going to happen. I think that's something that I kind of thought over time, where you're thinking you're umming and ahhing a little bit, because you're giving 100% into your football, and when you drop out of full time, you're giving 100% to football and your work and your mates and your girlfriend and everything. And then I think as you get that slightly bit older, to 21, I think you're a bit more mature. You realise that you're not quite good enough to make it. And there is always those stories that happen, which is more. There's a lot more happening now where lads come from non-league to full time. Back then it wasn't quite as common as what it is now. And then I think you just mature a little bit, and then you realise that you kind of hang on, I do need to go make a career. I do want to go be successful in something else. Because I think you spend so long from 14 to whatever age wanting to be the best in that team, in that environment, to then go and kick on and earn another contract. And then I felt that when I came out of football, it was good to then use that in the industry that I'm in now as such. But I'm, like I say, it wasn't one day. It was just a feeling of what was the feeling? Sadness. I wouldn't say depression, because I wouldn't want to do that injustice, because I don't feel like I've ever felt like that. But you were really low, really down. And then it was about using that, thinking, no, come on, let's get going now. And then over time you start building yourself back up, having experiences like going to go do football coaching that you don't want to do forever, but doing it and thinking that's not quite for me, let me go into something else. And that's when you start building a picture for yourself and as to where you want to go.
I think that's such a good example, mate. Honestly, hearing you speak about that's quite refreshing, because what you haven't spoken about, which sort of is a measure of you as a person, is that you are still a good footballer. Like, I know that obviously Worthing and you say I'm a part-time or like I'm a non-league player, but you still play football, you still get paid to play football, like you've still played at a great level and combined that with your work for a long time, which is actually quite a nice place for a lot of guys to be in, in the Conference South and the Conference North, even some of the clubs in the National League. They're combining work with football and they're doing really well, and there's a lot of value to be had in that. When did you, or I'm not going to say when did the penny drop, but when did you feel like I'm actually onto something really good here? I'm managing to combine something that's going to help me in long term, and I'm still playing football.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've been so lucky in that all the change rooms I've been in have been great changing rooms. And I've been so lucky. I've played at clubs where there's been good players. The managers have wanted to play football. So when I've come into part-time, to have those managers that want to play football, at training on Tuesday and Thursday night and on your game Saturday was great. And I loved it. Once I realised that there's good money to be made still in non-league, and then you can have your career alongside of it, I started to really enjoy it. Like I say, because the managers wanted to play football, the lads were good, the change room was good. That's when I started playing well again. After all the pressure of coming out of full time and having to perform every week at Nike Academy to try and get somewhere, and then even when I was at Whitehawk, trying to find another club, so you've got those pressures that you put on yourself for playing. After you kind of get rid of that, that's when I started playing actually pretty well. With Bognor, we got to the FA Trophy semi-final one year. We got to the playoff semis one year. We won the playoffs the year after, going into the Conference South. At Worthing, when I first went, we were in a relegation battle. We were in the relegation zone by a long stretch in the Ryman Prem by quite a few points. We managed to stay up that year. Year after, we kind of in around the playoffs. Last year, we managed to get promotion. So all those experiences have been so much fun. And winning promotion, it doesn't matter. I don't think it doesn't matter what level you win promotion. It's always such a good feeling. So yeah, I think as soon as I realized, as soon as I got to grips with where I was, that's when I started really enjoying football. Again, after so much pressure, and then after that, I didn't really feel any of that pressure anymore. Playing, you have your big games where your nerves and stuff, but there was never a point where I'm, felt so pressurized because of what's happened earlier on in your career. And then that's when I started playing well and really enjoying it. And then once I started enjoying my football, got into PTing and stuff, and then I started really enjoying that. So the whole balance of all of it has been great. It's still great now. I absolutely love doing it all. Still love playing football. I love training clients now. So it's a good feeling now.
Let's get into your PT then, obviously, and try and get some real takeaways for people who are listening, because not only did you go into PT, which is popular for somebody who was fit. You were always a fit guy. You were top of the running stats, all that sort of stuff in training. But you've managed to combine that with your football to become a specialist in a certain field, and obviously it's allowed you to work with some of the country's best players. Talk to me a little bit about the process that you took into personal training and how that has then moved on into you having all this, expert advice to give to the top elite players.
Yeah, it's I think on my website, I need to change my website. I'm changing for a long time. I think one of the bios was, it's just a natural progression for me to go from football into PTing, which I think every lad who's gone into PTing from football has probably got on their website. But there was, at the time you go into PTing, there was it's really popular now. I think it's popular now more than ever. I speak to my friends who are at colleges, and they say the PT qualification is full all the time. There's loads of people want to become PTs. I think social media has changed that a little bit, because it does look all pink and fluffy. But like I said earlier, there was, nobody sees. I should really, on my Instagram, I'm on the 5:30 trains up to London. I don't put that on, but maybe I should start to make people realise it's not that pink and fluffy. But yeah, I got my level 3 PT, and then from that, I started working at Workshop Gymnasium with the founder, Lee Mullins, and he's been a real good mentor for me. He's pushed me in the right direction, gave me advice on what courses to take. I took those courses, read loads of books, and then started trying to paint a picture of those courses, those books, start painting a picture of the way I think players not need to be trained, because they don't need to be there's you can train a player in lots of different ways and get success in loads of different ways. But I started building a picture of what I thought would be good from using my experience of playing football. And then Ingsy was my first football player, and then we actually documented it one off season. He knew what I'd been doing, because I still spoke to him. He knew the course I'd been taking. He kind of knew what I was doing with it and where I was wanted to go. So in one off season, I trained him, and there's luck involved in all the way, but luckily he done really well that year. He went and scored. I think he scored over 20 goals in the Premier League. In COVID, I had him on Zoom quite a lot, so I was documenting that, training him on Zoom. And after COVID happened, he went back. I think the first game he had, I might be wrong, but I think he played Norwich away, and I think he scored 2. And then he kicked on again, in that season. So yeah, there was a bit of luck that I could put, that I documented that, because a lot of people wouldn't have seen that otherwise. And then maybe I wouldn't have started getting a small reputation, and then having other lads trust me with their bodies. I would want to reiterate that the footballers are 5% of what I do. It's a general population is 95%. I'm just very fortunate that I get to work with that 5%. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about then your thoughts on how you think professional footballers should be trained, in your opinion.
In my opinion, that I think quite simply, I think in the gym we can always move. We're moving up and down. We're moving left and right. I don't think there's enough rotational work, that we do in the gym. I don't think there was quite enough power work that we done in the gym. But this is from when this has totally changed. But this is from when I was, in full time or whatever. Yeah, there wasn't quite enough specific movements in relation to the way players move on the pitch, trying to add a little bit of resistance into those movements or actions. And this is all stuff I picked up, again, reading books, listening to podcasts. There's a guy called Andy Barr, who's a great trainer. And in COVID, he actually done a lot of Instagram lives, and he's done podcasts. And then I started seeing what he was doing. And thought, yeah, do you know what? That after being in football, seeing that makes complete sense. So I started diving into a little bit into what he was doing, alongside, I'd done a course called Exos, which was great for athletic performance. I'd done a course by Mike Boyle, who a lot of trainers will know, and he's a great trainer. He's worked with athletes. So it's about just using all these different expertise from other trainers and just trying to use that to paint a picture for yourself, and then adding it all up. Yeah, okay, actually, do you know what? When I was at football, we didn't do much of that. Maybe that will work. And then you try things, and maybe it don't work, but you need to try it, because everyone's completely different as well. All players are completely different. All players need something totally different. And it's just about having all these tools in your box to then use with certain players, depending on what they want, who they are, where they are in their careers, and what injuries they've had, etc.
So were you trying all this stuff that you were learning? You were obviously building an opinion about how you felt like the gym and fitness training can be used for elite football performance.
Yeah.
Were you doing that on yourself? You were almost trialing all of it.
Yeah. So doing it myself, trying on some players, depending on if they wanted it. Explaining it to them, always giving them a why as to why we're doing this. Do you want to do it? If not, then there's no issue with that. But there's always a why behind it all. I wasn't just trying it and just doing it. So yeah, that was super important for me to explain to them, right, this is why we're doing this. To anyone, to any exercise, to any action, to any movement, to general population, we're doing this for this reason. Because I think now we can always see stuff on social media and just use it, but it's about knowing why we're using that with that client, with that athlete. So that's super important.
So what are the things that spring to your mind straight away when I ask you what separates a non-league player to an elite player?
Do you know what? Now I've been around non-league a while and around full time. There's not actually too much that separates them, to be honest. There's not too much at all. I think the elite mentalities are phenomenal. Phenomenal. I think some of the lads that I train, even though they're at the top, they're in the top 1% now, and they're on long contracts. They still want to be better. They still want to learn. they're still looking for, the 1% to be better, whether that's in their food, whether that's in the gym, whether it's the sleep. They're always wanting to get that little bit better to then gain the edge over their opponent. And I think to do that when you're in the top 1% is phenomenal, in my opinion.
So you're saying the biggest difference really is a mentality, not necessarily the fitness, because I'm thinking the difference between elite lads and obviously, I play in the National League as well, is most likely fitness, then movement, being able to, power, all that sort of stuff, which I know obviously is the makeup of a lot of elite athletes, but you're saying the main thing is mentality.
Yeah, definitely. I we play in non-league, and there's some strong lads, there's some powerful lads, there's some quick lads, there's some unbelievable players. But I think the mentality into exploring different things, exploring different avenues used to get better, all of the time. I personally think that takes some doing. That takes certain characteristics. That takes a personality. And if they're like that when they're at the top, they've obviously been like that all the way through. And I think that's what separates them ever so slightly when they've got to the top. You've had lads who have won stuff and they're always tracking their sleep. They're always looking at what they eat, and these guys have won the lot.
So do you think discipline in what they're doing, do you have to be disciplined to perform at the top level, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to be at that top level. So when I've been thinking of guys just then, they're all in the top 1%, but they're all like that. So when you've got someone next year looking on a way to get better, I think it's super important for you to make sure that you're looking at ways to get better as well. Otherwise, you will get left behind. And when you're at that top, obviously, you want to go and win stuff and be the best player on the pitch. And if you've got 21 other blokes on that pitch looking to do that, and you're not, I think you'll quite quickly get found out. And then after that, if you spend a long time doing that, a long time not looking to improve yourself or get better, you might just start dropping down the pecking order. That's my opinion.
I've worked with a sports scientist previous in my career, whilst I was at Bristol Rovers in League One, and he's an amazing guy. We've kept in touch. We speak all the time. I tried to use him as much as I possibly could, but physically was never as good as the rest of the guys. I can run at the same pace for a long time, but in terms of speed and stuff, I was never at the top. So I wanted to try and get enough out of him as I possibly could, and we've sort of kept that relationship now. But he's now gone on he works within the FA. He's worked with the Lionesses. He's works with Swansea City now, and works with really elite athletes. And I asked him, I said, what's the difference between the guys you're working with now and the Rovers guys? And he was also working with non-league guys. He's worked in a rugby environment. And he says, the higher up you go, you always get people who moan. Obviously, everybody's going to moan about this, that, and the other. But the higher up you go, they all just get on with it because they know that that's what it takes to perform at that top level. And the lower you go, the more people moan about it, the more they complain, the less they do. And he said that elite mentality is really the difference. He said the higher up he's gone, the easier his job has been. Is that what you find sometimes with these elite guys?
Definitely. Like and the more I'm lucky enough to travel with them and go away with them, and a lot of that's obviously in the off season that I'm with them. So that's their holiday. That they want to go in the gym. They want to be in the gym. They're and listen, you could easily say they're getting paid, a good amount of money to do that, but it'd be so easy to flip that as well. I'm being paid quite a bit, so I don't need to do it. But for these guys to want to go in the gym every morning, no matter what time, they want to be in the gym. No one who I've trained just want to get in and get out. They all want to be there. They're not really bothered about how long they're there. They want to be there. They want to be in the gym. They want to be running. I say they want to be running. They probably don't want to be running, but they want to be in that environment because they know then that they're doing the work that they need to. So when they go back to pre-season, that they're ready. And yeah, I think that's quite interesting. They won't find that interesting. I think a lot of people won't. I find that super interesting as to their mentalities of they're on holidays, the families there, and they're still wanting to work hard.
What was your first insight into sort of that mentality that those elite guys that you work with have? Can you give us any insight into moments that you think, oh, like his mindset's incredible, or his attitude's incredible?
Like. Yes, so it's happened a lot. But I think on a couple of occasions, there's been times where we've been away, and there's not any amazing facilities around. There's some, but he's found a pitch. You know, it was just a 4G local, which is fine. It was nice actually in the end. Found a pitch. We found a gym, which was a half-hour walk away, and taxis weren't easy to get. So we'd always go to the pitch, train in the morning early before it got really hot, and then we'd walk to the gym. And that sounds so silly, but not once did he think, oh, this is rubbish or this is crap. We just done it. And we'd done that every single day bar one. And we was there for just over a week. But yeah, for them, again, this sounds so silly, but this is where people think, you know, stuff's done for those elite all the time, but it's not. A lot is still done to them. He found the pitch, he found the gym, booked it all, sorted it all out. Not once, like you said just then, not once did he moan, think, oh, this is a bit long or whatever. And this is on his holiday.
Who was that?
McGinn.
And that's it's just his mentality. Is he wants to work, he wants to get stuff done.
Yeah, and I think you can see that in the way he plays. Is just he plays every game as if it's last, and you know he'll when you watch him play, he just works his socks off every game.
He's just been made Aston Villa's captain as well. Can you see, obviously, those traits? That must be the reason why.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And when you start adding those little things up and you start seeing those traits and characteristics, is it coincidence he's skipper there now? I don't think so.
I find it really interesting. A lot of the guys that I've spoken to have managed to take success and motivate themselves to work harder. There's a lot of guys, you know, in all walks of life really, that can take success and then think like, oh, I've done enough now, I can relax. And all these guys really that people should, or players, young guys, people in the youth team, just left school, people in under 23 setups, first team players who are 32 like me, should aspire to use success to motivate you to want more. And is that what you're finding in? Because you work with some Premier League guys who have played in the non-league, like who have got moves from other clubs that are, you know, now they're probably playing at the highest level they have done. And these are the guys that still want to turn up and work on their holidays.
Yeah, 100%. I think, well, obviously you know Ingsy as well. He was at Dorchester. I think they were Conference South at the time when he was on loan there. And obviously he's right. He's in that top 1% now. But you can still see he's got that side of him where he's got that real what's the word I'm looking for? That working men's attitude. Do you know what I mean? He wants to work. He always wants to. Like I said earlier in COVID, he was on Zoom all the time. There's been times where I haven't been able to train him when he's been abroad. He'll get me on the Zoom every day. He'll take the equipment with him and he'll be in the gym. Again, it'd be so easy not to, and it'd be so easy, you know, just to go and do half hour in the gym. But he'll get me on the Zoom, and we'll be on there for an hour and a half, 2 hours on the Zoom, and whilst he's in the gym. And I think that is all. Again, that's probably come from him being in the Conference South when he was younger, being at Bournemouth, at Dorchester, Bournemouth, Burnley. All teams where he's had to work really hard to kind of prove himself, and he's always had to prove himself in all those teams, all those squads.
And I know that obviously, for the benefit of listeners, that you and Ingsy were in the same youth team at Bournemouth. You went through that process together, and obviously Danny has gone on to wonderful things. I've been chasing him to try and get him on here, and he owes me because I used to pick him up every day from his house to take him to training. But I don't want people to think that, you know, your expertise and what you do is just because you and Danny are friends. And there's actually a lot online, and the research that I've done, obviously, into the stuff that you do with your elite players, is that Ingsy saw the benefit in working with you and his fitness, because he's gone through a lot. He's had knee injuries. He's spent a lot of time injured. and he didn't just reach out to you because you were his friend. He reached out to you because you were an incredible benefit on his football. So I don't want people to think like, oh, he must be really lucky. He's got a mate who's made it. Like, he's made it as a result of obviously your influence.
Yeah.
I want to try and break down obviously what some of that might look like. And I know it's not one size fits all when you work with a lot of different players. So, some of the stuff you might do is a little bit different, but it's difficult for you to work with the guys in the season. And we'll get onto that in a bit. But off-season training, most of the work you're able to do, you've spoken about going away and that sort of Portugal, that Quinta do Lago, the campus, they call it. If anybody wants to see that online, obviously it's an incredible facility that you work out of, and you do a lot of stuff there with your players. What does a general off-season training schedule or program look like when the guys are working with you?
Like you said, everyone's completely different. And when the lads are trained now, they're not young. They're not. There's a couple of young lads, but most of them are established players as such, I'd like to say, and they all have strengths, they all have weaknesses, and this is my opinion. I might be totally wrong, but I always find that we might as well get their strengths even stronger rather than waste time and try and make their weaknesses that little bit better. That's just my opinion. So, if some of them are powerful already, let's get them even more powerful. Let's use that. Yes, okay, if someone's powerful but they're quite unfit, none of them are unfit, but okay, they might not be able to, sprint really fast, or they might not be able to jump really high. What's the point in them being able to jump really high but only lasting 15 games a season? What's the point of trying to get them 0.1% quicker because sprinting is their weakness when they can only do that 5-10 games a season? I mean, for their clubs, it's so much more important to have their assets on that pitch, 38 games a season as such. So yes, if their weaknesses are sprinting or jumping high, let's improve it a little bit, but let's just make sure they're on the pitch for a 38 game season. Let's get them nice and strong. Let's have a nice basic, strength program to keep them strong for the season. Obviously then they can be more of an asset to the club. Hopefully they'll have a better, more enjoyable season, more positive seasons, because they can stay on the pitch for 38 games in that season. So yeah, that's where I kind of just try and lean towards in the off season. Is trying to keep them on the pitch for that whole time and get their strength stronger.
Let's try and break it down a little bit, then get a little bit more specific, and I'm going to try and milk some headlines. Let's take, for argument's sake, someone you work with, James Maddison, right? How does the process work of you working with him? Does he reach out to you, or obviously is it? And then what happens from that moment? How do you come up with his program?
Yeah, so that one, I only trained him a couple of times, to be fair. But again, we're in Portugal, and in that environment, I just think it's they need to trust you. So I was trained a lad he knows, and then that's how that came around. Because they need, like I say, it's a trust thing there, especially when you're working with these guys, and they're worth. They won't realise, but they are worth a lot of money. They're a big asset to the club. So I think having that, having that between you, where they trust you, and they've got those, they trust you with their bodies. That's super important. That's the best buy-in you could ever have from a client. Now, obviously, I was only with him a couple of times, but when you've got other lads, you'll speak to them. If when they reach out to you and they want to train, you find out what injuries have they got, what injuries have they had, what are they currently working on. Speaking to the club, I think, is super important, and making sure you keep them on loop and speak to them, because obviously you want to build those relationships with the clubs as well. And I think they need total transparency as to where those players are at, getting their current program, seeing what their current programs are like, using that, and then just adding a little bit of value as to where you think you can add some gains for them within that program. But I think the most important thing is, that for all that transparency and communication is the biggest thing out of all them, talking to them, making sure they're comfortable with what you're doing. Like I say, using the program they've got, but then putting your own little spin on it. And just communicating all of that is super important.
So can you help the listeners understand the benefits, what you do as such? I don't want to give all your secrets away, but, what is it that you do with your players that you believe all players should be doing? Like what kind of movements, what kind of exercises?
Yeah, everything I do is already out there, so that there is no secret as to what I do. Like I said earlier, it's picking up from those trainers who I love the way they work, love the way they are. But I think just trying to recreate actions and movements that you do on the pitch in the gym in a safe way is a really good way of just adding something to your gym program. Definitely, still do your strength work, your power work, your speed work and stuff. Don't ever neglect any of that, but just trying to look at a way of improving those movements that you do on the pitch with a slight bit of resistance in the gym. I think could go a long way. And listen, it might not, it doesn't work for everyone, but I think like a lot in health and fitness and PT, and it's about trying something, seeing if it works for you. If it don't, fine, move on to the next thing. If something works, stick with it.
So what sort of game specific movements are you talking about?
So I think let's use a striker, for example. Obviously they're backing into the defenders quite a lot. They're trying to roll them, trying to get them strong, in that position when they're backing up into a defender. As that's just one example. You can get nice and strong, lifting your weights and getting, trying to improve your muscle mass as such, get a little bit bigger. But let's get that core strong. Let's get that stability through your body. Let's make that spine feel nice and safe, so it brings stability to your body and it gives you a maximum movement. Once your spine feels safe, it will give you more movement. Hopefully, it helps creating more power to the rest of your body, and then hopefully that reduces injuries as well.
Some of the stuff that I've read and watched, that you've obviously documented your time with Ingsy, and there's articles that people have written on you and interviews that you've done. You talk about pieces of equipment that you believe are important for footballers. So can you tell us a little bit about what those pieces of equipment are and why you think they're so important?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I will always travel with when I go away. There's always mini bands. I'm always taking mini bands with me, taking long bands with me. There's something I've been using which was a Core X. They call it the Core X system. So I was using that, and then I've also been using Q bands, again, which were created by Andy Barr. So those bands are a great thing to travel with, especially off season. Like I said earlier, sometimes we just have a pitch and that's it when we're traveling. There is no gym. So if I know I can take a few of these things, I know where we can get some good work in before starting the session. So I know the movement prep before going into the session is nice and strong, and we're all fired up. So they're just little tools to kind of use alongside your basic strength program that I like to take with me as such.
We're talking obviously about the work that you do with elite players, but a lot of the guys watching this who want to try and take something away from themselves are probably guys playing non-league, and they might not have access to, certainly won't have access to you or to a pitch on holiday or whatever it may be. They might not be able to take that equipment with them or in the off season, or maybe even during the season. What sort of basic things can people do to help themselves, whether it obviously be the prehab before training games, after training games, or for a general gym session?
Yeah, I think like I say, that 95% of what I do is general population, where and some do you know, I have clients who do play non-league and stuff. I think something that's super important, let's say off season for example, I think it's super important to keep your sprints up, because that's something that when you go back, is some, yeah. I mean, pre-season's there to get fit to start off with. So I always believe anyway, that's the point in pre-season. So you want to go back with your base level. But I think it's super important to keep your sprinting up. And that can be as basic as just doing, you know, 8 lots of 50-meter sprints as fast as you can with a slow walk back, and just doing 2 or 3 sets of that to make sure you've still got that in your legs as such for when you go back. And I think in season it's really important to keep up with your if you've had any injuries, keeping up on top of that all year round. You know, making sure you're doing your activation, making sure you're doing your prehab before you go to training, and just keeping on top of those things. Like I said earlier, it's good to speak to players, see what injuries they've had, see how their bodies are feeling, and keeping on top of those things. Because if you don't keep on top of things, you'll probably know that they do soon come back to bite you. And reoccurrence from injuries can be high. So it's so important to keep on top of those things. Again, whether that's as basic as always having, you know, hamstring issues, just making sure that posterior chain is nice and strong, and then just looking for ways to improve on any issues that you've had. And there's so many books. There's so many, you know, you can go on the website, you can go onto the internet and find different articles. There's books. There's everything. Listen, you might not have time to do that, but if you're a non-league and you're still making good money out of it, if I was you, I'd be staying on top of my injuries for as long as possible.
You know what it's like, mate, in football, especially towards the end of a season, is that holidays are coming up. Guys want to look good. Social media now demands that everybody's got the aesthetically pleasing body, and everybody wants to feel good about themselves on holiday. So the gym starts to become a little bit less football and a little bit more beach weights, right? I'm interested to know, in your opinion, the relation between training like an athlete and being able to play at a high level, and the beach weights, which ultimately might look good on a social media post, but won't maybe have the benefit to your football.
Yeah. Do you know what? I bet it wouldn't surprise me that a lot, if a lot of the elite lads even start doing those kind of weights before the end of season, because they know they're going away. But hey, listen, there's some players out there who want to keep on top of their muscle mass. They want to stay nice and strong, so they're going to be doing that all the time. And there's nothing out there. There's no way that some people, just because they're going to do those weights, that's going to then cause them any issues, you know, towards the end of season by doing that. So I think there's nothing wrong with, you know, staying on top of the weights at all. Especially if you're looking to look good in the off season. But I think if you're playing football, if you want to be specific, I think you do have to just make sure that you are doing the right things. Again, let's go back to what I said earlier. There needs to be a why to everything. Why am I doing this exercise? Why is this going to benefit me? If there's not a good why to that, then I don't maybe think about doing something, you know, doing an alternative.
And you'd prescribe people to do that specifically for their football. Like when guys are going to the gym, you'd like to think about how is this going to benefit my performance, not how is this going to make me look better on the beach.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And but with that, I think it's such a psychological thing. If there's something that you do in the gym and it makes you feel good, and then you go out to play and you go out to train and it makes you feel good, then do it. You know, as long as it's within reason. But if you want to keep, I know some lads who do stay on top of their upper body strength work because it makes them feel good and makes them look good. So then they go out on a Saturday, 3 p.m, they look good, they feel good, they play better. So I think that there's got to be a psychological element to it as well. If it doesn't make you feel good, if you don't feel like it's improving you or it's helping with your performance, then again, think of an alternative. But yeah, it's so psychological. I know some lads who will do the same exercise on the same day leading up to that 3 o'clock game on a Saturday, because then in their head they're ready for that game. That might be just 2 or 3 exercises and might not even be doing much, might not be doing anything at all. But when they go out to that game on Saturday, they feel better, and they feel better for doing it. So then they're going to, the chest is going to be out a little bit more on that Saturday at 3 p.m. for that reason. And if that's the reason of doing a couple of things in the gym, then I would never tell them to stop doing that. If anything, I'd say tell them to always keep doing it.
I'm interested to get your opinion on your influence on your players during the season, because I host something, as you know, on the South Coast called Front Foot, which is basically just trying to emulate the environment of a club training session in the off season, so guys can train. It's not gym specific or anything, but whilst that came semi-popular on the South Coast, and obviously I get a lot of guys coming now, I thought, what can I do with this environment during the season that might be of benefit to people or might be of benefit to me. It might give me another opportunity to do something else. But ultimately, it's so difficult to mess around with other clubs training, and there's no way that I'm going to be able to say, like, I'm putting on a session on a Wednesday night if anyone wants to come, and guys like, well, I've trained every day or 3 times this week, like I can't come. So I'm interested to know, in the off season, obviously you spend a lot of time with your players, the names obviously that we've said from the start. Are you able to have an influence on them when they go back to their clubs?
No, not really. If sometimes, again, I'll go back to it. If there's some stuff that they do that I do with them in the gym, if there's certain exercises or certain actions or movements that I do with them, quite often they'll kind of like keep that up. Sometimes if they want a top up from me, I'll go see them in the season, but that might be once every now and again, because as you know, their schedules are mad. So I think there's more of an emphasis on recovery on the in season. But as a trainer, you have your top ups. They do their work with their clubs. So there's not a huge amount that I kind of do, in the season. And yeah, I'd never, tell them not to. I'd never say to stop doing something that they're doing with their club. That's no chance. So, if they reach out and they want a little top up, I will go and visit them and train them, and just to make sure they're doing the stuff that we've been doing in the off season, to make sure they're doing it still correctly and stuff like that.
When you were playing, you did it, that environment at Bournemouth when obviously we were much younger, was that you did extra. That was, the manager demanded that, and then the influence of other players demanded that. But not all clubs are like that. Not all players are like that. What is your opinion? And I'm asking you because I know that you did that as a player, and that had positive benefit on you. What should guys be doing? And some guys are training twice a week that might listen to this. Some guys might be playing full time. There might be people who, I know one of my best friends is a cyclist, and he listens to these, and he actually takes a little bit from them as well. So in your expertise, obviously, as a fitness expert, what can guys be doing alongside their training or match days or normal training schedule that are going to help benefit them and their performance?
I'm going to just touch base on. So obviously a lot of us do our gym work, and it's hard to have a PT or have a specialist within it. But one thing I love to concentrate on is the recovery and the sleep. I think that's super important. I think that's such an easy win. It's an easy way of having a positive impact on your performance, on your life, and it's something that we don't really touch base on. It's completely free. We don't have to think about too much on it. But sleep to improve performance. There's so much out there now that shows how much it improves performance, how it reduces injuries. how if you get too much, you actually start increasing the risk of injury. And if you don't get enough, you're also, increasing the chance of getting an injury. So there is like a magic point of how much sleep you should be getting. So I wear an Oura ring. I'm obsessed with it. I think that's such a good tool. It's the first thing I look at when I wake up. It's the last thing I look at before I go to bed. It gives you a sleep score. It's showing you how much you've slept, how your body might be performing that day. So it gives you a readiness score. It gives you breathing techniques. It gives you kind of like, of 10 minutes to do before you go to bed to help you fall asleep, to help you drop into a deeper sleep. It does meditation on the app and everything, but that's such an easy way. And quite a few that I always recommend it to all the lads that I train is about getting an Oura ring. I think a lot of them have got them now, and they wear it all the time. It's such an easy win of being able to improve performance when we don't have to think about it too much.
How did you find about this ring? I've never heard about it.
There's all sorts. There's Whoop bands. There's what's the other? There's another company that does a sleep tracker. But like the Whoop bands and that, I would normally wear a watch, so I didn't want to wear something on my wrist. So I just found this ring online, so now I recommend it. That's the first thing when I go away with some of the lads. The first thing I do is get yourself an Oura ring. Just make sure that if there's anything that's the one thing we can do is just see where you're at with your sleep, and that will just give us an indication of how we can go and perform that day in training, in the off season. And then obviously they'll use that then in the season as well.
So how much is too little and how much is too much?
7 to 9 hours is optimal. We can sleep too much. But 7 to 9 hours, trying to go to sleep at the same time as much as you can, and trying to wake up at the same time as much as you can. And listen, that's not possible all the time, but trying to get that routine in as much as possible is a nice little way of improving your sleep, and then hopefully improving your performance. So 7 to 9 hours is kind of optimal. And
of these elite guys that you work with, have you noticed that sleep is important to them? Are they aware of it, or? Yeah.
They are now, and it's something that is more spoken about. It can be tough for them because they take before night, but after night games are hardest on a Tuesday night, especially if you're non-league. You've played Tuesday night, you're up early on Wednesday morning, you've taken your caffeine before the game, you're not getting in till late, you've eaten late, you won't sleep well that night, but ignore that night. Make sure on the Wednesday night you're going to bed early. You're trying to do the right things. And then obviously doing that again on the Thursday night and the Friday. So I know, especially for non-league lads and people with normal jobs, it's not possible. But with this, obviously you can see you've slept really badly. Okay, let me try and fix that the next day or the next night, and et cetera, et cetera.
So to finish us off, mate, I'm just going to fire some, I call them quick fire questions, but they're not really, because I'm going to delve into them and try and get some more detail off you with them. But of the athletes that you work with, what type of personality is the most difficult to work with, and why?
Sure, I'm not just saying this, but they've all been amazing. They're all great lads, and I think that's why they're at the top. Not one of them doesn't want to work. Not one of them doesn't want to improve. They all want to improve. They all want to be better. And I think it's someone who, like I say, I'm lucky enough for them all to be great. But I think it would be someone who doesn't want to learn, doesn't want to listen, doesn't buy into what I do or what people around them are trying to help them to do. They're always taking information on. They're always, they never shut an opinion off. They never rubbish an opinion off. They'll listen to you. They'll dive into it. They'll give things a go, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But they're open to so much in regards to improving. I don't think that's coincidence.
If I had to predict what you would have said to that question, I think I would have predicted that you had said that. It's part of the reason why I asked, really, is because supporters may think, obviously these guys are superstars ultimately. People might think that they've got big egos, that they are motivated, that they don't care. And I know a couple of lads who play at the very elite level, not as many obviously as you do, but of those guys that do, I know for a fact that that's not true. They might come across a certain way on social media with whatever it is, fashion and music and what they're interested in. But in terms of actual football, the reason why they play at the top is because they dedicate their whole lives to doing it. So I almost knew that that's what you were going to say. But by working with them, how refreshing is it working with these guys?
Yeah, it's great. Obviously, it's just my now little way of still being within football at an elite level. Because listen, I wanted to play at the top level as a young kid and growing up, and I couldn't. But then to be able to be in that environment now is something I'm forever grateful for. And to know that these guys, they're normal guys. They're like us. Do you know what I mean? They're like anyone. But they're just they're lucky they get to do something that they've always worked so hard on. That they get to do that every single day. But they're grateful. They are really grateful, and they won't ever take that for granted. And I think that's why they all work so hard in being better and being the best they can possibly be.
Something I want to press you on a little bit more that you spoke about earlier, because it's actually quite rare. I've not really heard it too much. Is quite often when you're assessed as a footballer, it doesn't matter what level you played at, if you work with a fitness instructor, if you've got a sports scientist, or even if you're just self-evaluating, you think of what you're not very good at and you try to come up with ways to make them better, and you overlook the things that you're good at. You've spoken already a little bit before about if you've got strengths, why not make them super strengths? And acknowledge the weaknesses, but don't work as hard on them as you would what you're already the best at.
Yeah. 100%.
How did you build that opinion?
How did I build? Do you know what? I'm not too sure. I think it came with time. It came with talking to a lot of the lads before I go away with them. It took watching them, because I try and watch them all as much as I possibly can. And when you get to, a certain point in your career, a certain age, is there any point in like you say, touch the weaknesses? If that weakness is an injury as such, obviously stay on top of that, whatever that may be. But with if their strength is, whatever it is on the pitch or in the gym, I think it's super important to kind of get that and run with it, because we haven't got too much time to waste, especially within football. Careers are short. And yeah, I think if you're good at something, run with it and just go with it. There's certain things that let's use plumbing, like in stuff that I've done before. Coaching, I wasn't great at coaching. Plumbing, I wasn't too good. I did spend a short time in sales. I was no good. Went into the gym, and I feel like I'm good with people. So let's use it. Let's run with it. Let's try and use. Let me try and use being good with people, and that's why I got into PTing. Because so much of it, PTing isn't about what you know or what books you read or what course you do. It's about building that relationship with that person in front of you. If that person in front of you wants to train 3 or 4 times a week, they're going to want to get on with you before anything. They're not going to come and see you if they don't like you. They don't like you as a person. So it's super important. Super important to be, open to everyone and everything, and try and build that relationship with people.
A lot of people who have listened to this podcast, obviously we've got quite a few episodes out now, and it's amazing when people reach out to me and tell me that they've listened or whatever they've taken, and quite a lot of those people often are parents of young guys, girls who are trying to make their way in youth football and with the aspirations of becoming a professional. And a lot of them always sort of ask my advice on how can my son or daughter get involved in this or get involved in an academy, or what can they do to help benefit them. And not a lot of people really talk about gym or fitness for youth players, for young players, because it's at the elite academies, we always sort of see it as like, oh, that 15-year-old is super fast or super strong, or he might be a grown man by the age of 14. You know what I mean? And those players always, you know, you can always spot them from a mile off, and quite often they're praised at that age for doing that. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I want to get your opinion on, you know, young players are all different shapes and sizes, different attributes physically. What sort of stuff can they be doing? And, you know, I don't want to put an age limit on it, but what can young people be doing fitness-wise that's going to help them alongside their football? Is there anything that you think that they can do?
If we're talking young, like young, let's say from 8 to 16, because we're talking academies, right? Move as much as possible. And by that, like, our bodies are there to move. That's why it's so good that do as much sport as you can. You know, whether it's tennis, there's so much rotational movement. There's so much change direction in relation to football on the tennis court. So going to recreate those actions, you know, on the tennis court might help you in football. Whether it's, you know, swimming, whether it's netball, because again, there's so much rotational movement. There's so much rotational movement in so many different sports. It's great to be doing those things all of the time and to move in completely different ways. I always think quite often, how can I put this? So if your body's done a certain action or movement time and time again, your nervous system is patterned to move that way. Hopefully when you come to doing that in a high pressure moment, you won't get injured. So let's say through your whole life, you know, you've done certain movements. Hopefully, well, your nervous system will pattern it so it's comfortable with doing that movement. So the more sport you can do, the more your body's patterned to move in those different ways. Now, will that help you on the football pitch? My opinion is yes. It might not, but yeah, my opinion is the more you can move your body, the more you can pattern your nervous system to be comfortable with moving in loads of different ways, in safe ways. Hopefully that reduces injuries as they grow up. Hopefully that gives them a better opportunity to go and make a career in football. And then hopefully again, it can help them play 38 games a season, like I said earlier.
I'm going to record that answer and use it so that whenever a manager asks me why I'm playing golf every day, then I'm going to be able to say that.
Yeah, 100% use it.
What's the best piece of advice that you give to your players about their training?
That's a good question. What's the best bit of advice? The best bit of advice that I like is just keep up with all the prehab work, all your activation. Do it every single day. All the movement prep that you do before you go out and train, do it every single day. Even little things like, let's use foam rolls as an example. There's a lot of it out there now to say, foam rolls don't work and stuff. My personal opinion is, if you go into training, you feel tight, you feel tired, you feel fatigued, you go and jump on that foam roller, you're talking to your mate, your teammate, your nervous system is then just releasing like more neurally. That has worked, even if that's just 5 minutes. So imagine that every single day. It is helping that particular player. And if you find something that works, just do it. Like we said earlier, do it. If that's whether that's foam rolling, I love it. I love going into training and just jump on the foam roll for 5 minutes. I love for my clients to do it because then I can just catch up with them for those 5 minutes. Hey, how did you sleep last night? How did you eat last night? What have you eaten this morning? How's things at family? How's things with, at home? You can talk to them within that 5 minutes and gather so much information to then use in the session. And that's something that I like to do, and that helps. And yeah, there might be science, like I say, out there that says that doesn't back that up, but I love doing it. So it's same for players. If there's certain exercise that they do that makes them feel good before they go out to training, keep doing it. Keep on with the prehab, keep on with the activation work every single day.
To finish, mate, because I don't want people to forget about the experiences that you've had in your own football career and how valuable that they can be for other people, because the truth is we don't all make it, but you can be successful in something else, and you're a really incredible example of that. So what advice would you have for young players starting out their football journey now?
there's more to life than football. There's so much more outside of football. And listen, not everyone makes it, but like I said earlier, I loved part-time football and I loved working alongside it. I loved it. I think the experience that I had when I was younger, growing up in different change rooms with different people, meeting different people, is such a good, valuable experience. And having those social skills, growing up from such a young age, so important to building your personality, building your characteristics. You'll know, like, you know how it is, because you've spent so much time with so much different people. You can talk to anyone. And I think that's helped me now with my personal training. No matter who walks through the gym, because of the experience that I've had, I feel I can relate and talk to them. But I know when, a lot of people within a football circle and whose life has only been football, even people coming to the end of their careers. And I felt this most last season because I was injured for so long. There's so much more life to football. That sounds bad, but there's so much more out there, and we can get so wrapped up in this football world and this football bubble, and we actually forget about what's out there.
Listen, Alex, I want to say thank you, because I've been chasing you for a while to get on this podcast, mate. And the reason why was because I was so excited about, not only are you working with some of the most elite players in the Premier League, and some of your expertise can be great for the people listening who are having football careers, but also your experiences with your own career are not only eye-opening for other people listening, but they're, as I've just said, they're an incredible example that there, as you've just touched on, there is life after football. And because your football career sometimes might come to an end professionally, that it's not the end of your life. So I want to say thank you, mate, because that was one of the best conversations we've had. True life, real life stories, and
thanks for having me.
And I really appreciate it.
Good, yeah. Thanks for having me. Hope everyone enjoys listening to me waffle on for a long time.
Thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, mate.